Welcome to Teaching Truth. My name is Glenn Cartwright. Around the Tabernacle in 50 days. Well, we're well into our journey. We're past the halfway mark. We've unearthed so much. We've discovered so much. We've learned so much together. And we are continuing on our journey as we discover more about the priesthood in the tabernacle, which was so important then and which is so important to a proper understanding of the tabernacle in the here and now. Yesterday we thought about the calling of the priests, and today we want to think about the character of the priests. You see, priests did not enter their office by choice or by spiritual knowledge or by the personal qualities that they possessed, but by birth into the Aaronic family. However, to be accepted for service in the tabernacle, the most holy place, they had to meet some very stringent standards, not set by the people, not set by the high priest, but set by God himself. And because a priest was to be a chief among his people, great responsibility was placed on his shoulders to exemplify personal purity and character in what he did before the Israelite people. To put it bluntly and simply, if he disobeyed the divine regulations of and standards set for his office, he would be immediately dismissed from service in the tabernacle. For example, and in practical terms, it was mandatory for priests to make wise choices in terms of marriage partners. The priest had to marry well, not marrying a prostitute or a profane woman or a divorcee or a widow. She had to be a virgin. And even here we see Christ typified, because the bride of the high priest in particular typified the bride of Christ and typifies the bride of Christ. And what is the bride of Christ? Well, the bride of Christ is the church. The church in union with Christ as a virgin, 2 Corinthians 11:2. And although the church is not without blemish, humanly speaking, today, it will be presented as such during the marriage supper of the Lamb. Revelation chapter 19, verses 7 to 8. Priests were to be holy in their marital relationships and to fulfill their roles properly. The conduct of the priest's children too was of great importance. Their daughters could disgrace and discredit their father's ministry by immorality if they, for example, became prostitutes. In terms of their sons, the priests had a responsibility to see that their sons married according to the law. And failure of a priest's son to marry properly would bring disgrace to the family and would disqualify him from the priesthood, the ministry, in effect. Just look at what happened to poor old Eli. Eli, who allowed his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, to commit adultery at the tabernacle of all places. 1 Samuel 2, verse 22, causing the people to lose respect for the priest and also for the tabernacle. Now let me just press the pause button on all of this to say this, that we are to learn from and to be like the priests in the tabernacle of old, in whatever modern day tabernacle we might serve in. We are to live lives of purity. We are to live lives that have integrity. We are to be above reproach if we hold any position whatsoever of leadership. Those who teach will be judged more harshly, said James in chapter 3 of his book. So what are we saying here? That those serving in leadership positions in the local church, in their local tabernacle, must be blameless, must have integrity in relationships, must be faithful in their domestic and social interactions. As Jim Graham, the former pastor of Gold Hill Baptist Church in Buckinghamshire, once said, to be a leader in the local church is to be Christ-like. Let me say that again. To be a leader in the local church is to be Christ-like. To be a priest in the tabernacle of old was in that sense to be Christ-like, to typify Christ, the great high priest. Jim Graham goes on to say that the two main requirements for leadership in the New Testament, but it could well have been said of the priests in the Old, were this: they must be full of the Holy Spirit. In other words, the presence of God. God must tabernacle, dwell within them. He says many of our problems in leadership today arise from a neglect of this very first principle. Too many Christian leaders are filled with their own ideas rather than with the Spirit of God. The result is that they speak, decide and act out of their minds and emotions rather than out of an awareness of the guidance or the prohibition of the Spirit of God. And secondly, he says that leaders are to be full of wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the ability to see things from God's point of view. Jim Graham goes on to write, where leadership is filled with the Spirit of God and the wisdom of God, it can be trusted to lead. That happened then, and God intends that it should happen still. For those who are concerned to have good leadership, I need to ask, what are you looking for in your leaders? Other qualities and gifts no doubt must take their place, but these without the fullness of the Spirit and wisdom will come to nothing. The character of leadership, according to the Bible, is to be full of the Holy Spirit and of wisdom, aside from anything else. True now, true then in the New Testament, and true in terms of the priests in the Old Testament tabernacle. To be full of the presence of God, the dwelling, the tabernacling of God, and to be full of wisdom, to be men of God. So how do you and I achieve that? Well, let me quote the words of William D. Longstaff, who I believe gave the key to maintaining personal purity and integrity in character before the Lord when he wrote the hymn, "Take time to be holy." Take time to be holy. The world rushes on. Much time spent in secret with Jesus alone. By looking to Jesus, like him thou shalt be. Thy friends in thy conduct his likeness shall see.